I just started recording, and I'll just be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about.
Okay. Damn.
Alright. Already spawned a couple things, but we'll just put a pin on them for now. Nicely.
Thank you.
Alright. So, already have a couple things that I have on mind. We will be reviewing in depth after the game is over. Just because they'll probably take a little too long while you're in the middle of fights here.
Okay.
And then, let's see. Well, I'll start trying to think of some stuff that we can go over while the game is going on here.
Well, no, the first hit my shots, huh? I've been missing
Yep.
a lot.
We'll talk. So we can talk on, I guess, that general principle. I'll do it after next time you die or fight's over and whatnot. We'll go over one hitting your shots. Helpful tip here.
Damn, I might have been able to save him.
All right, so you seem to be doing a lot of flicking. Flicking is necessary in certain instances and not in others. When it is necessary is when you have a very fast-moving target, think tracer blinking around you, or if someone sneaks up behind you, or anytime your crosshair needs to travel somewhere very, very fast.
Right. I had
But
to leave chat because I
yeah,
couldn't hear you.
you're good. Yeah, but if you are already staring directly at people, then flicking does nothing except for just put you off of your targets a lot of the time. So I would recommend attempting not to flick and just aim straight at them when you are already aiming the people you're trying to shoot at.
Okay. I just did a Call of Duty reload right there.
Alright, so when it comes... Oh, I guess we're getting res. One moment. So I guess the fight's over still. So when it comes
Yeah.
to heal nades, right? You heal nade when people are low and in danger. If you are critical HP and standing where you are right now, you are not in danger, right? And you can be full HP while in the middle of their team. In neither of those cases would a nade do anything, right? Or be needed. So therefore, you want to make sure you're nading when you are low and in danger, or your teammates are low and in danger. And there's
Right.
been a lot of cases where that just hasn't been the case, right? Where we just thrown in an aid just because we saw somebody's low, right? Not really taking danger level into account.
Okay.
And then we'll discuss more on nade in a moment. Alright, so now, second thing with nade. Anti-nade is insane. Anti-nade is very, very powerful, and we didn't really utilize it at all. We didn't really actively look for it. When you land a 4, 5, 6-man anti-nade, those a lot of the times can be even more powerful than your nano boost. So you have an ability that's on a cooldown that has the potential to be more powerful than an ultimate. And on top of that, like that's not even taking into consideration just the really good value of getting a 2-3-man anti-nade, right? So we want to make sure going for anti-nades much more often. You go for anti-nades anytime healing nade is not needed. So we just discussed when healing nade is needed. It's needed when people are low and in danger. If those two aren't the case, we're just throwing in anti-nades anytime we see the opportunity, right? Whereas so
Okay.
far, I'd say one thing is that we're just not throwing it very often. So I'd look to get that quantity up, get it higher. We want to be throwing it essentially off of cooldown, not necessarily, but we want to be throwing it as often as possible. And then we also want to be looking for quality, getting good anti-nades in there. Whereas I think we saw like maybe one or two antis the entire game, and they weren't very good. So looking for better ability usage there definitely is going to have getting ability usage in is how you carry as Ana, right? If you're just heal botting, that's how you exist. That's how you set a choke the entire game. If you land a big fat nade, that's how you can break your team through the choke, right? That's how you have an impact. So that's big massive one I'd recommend here. All right, so not a whole lot you can do after your entire team leaves, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's about it. So we're gonna don't hop into a queue quite yet. We're gonna go over a bunch of different things. I'm going to be streaming if you'd like to take a look. All right. So, firstly, kind of on the note of the flicking, which we discussed, of just like make sure we're not randomly flicking when we don't need to be. That, for example, was the reason why we missed that sleep on the Roadhog just 10 seconds ago, was because we were aiming straight directly at Roadhog, and then we go for sleep, and then all of a sudden we're like, wata, right? And then it goes off into nothingness, right?
I don't know why I do that.
Yeah. One cause I'm maybe thinking, do you mind telling me what is your sensitivity in DPI at?
So I've been trying to play on my lower DPI, which is 800, but I usually have it on 1200 with Anna, and then my sensitivity is 4.3.
4.3. And then that game right there, was that your 4.3 by 800?
I think I was on my 1200.
Okay, so that would be 4.3 times 1200. That doesn't sound too terrible. 1200 times 4.3. So that's honestly not like too terrible. That's definitely like more an average sensitivity. So I don't think it's particularly going to be too high of a sensitivity. I was maybe thinking it might be a high sensitivity, but that's more like I'd say around the range of a medium sensitivity, and then once you swap over to that 800, then that's a low sensitivity. So that those honestly seem fine. I'd say it's just more so think through how you're shooting and make sure that we're trying not to randomly flick when it's not needed. But like we discussed, there are times where it is, particularly anytime your crosshair's not on said person, right? So we have
Right.
to flick to shoot at Tracer, right? That's when we need to be flicking, not when we're already here and then going like this, right? So
Yeah.
that I'd recommend. Be very helpful with landing shots. Now, other things to add in here. Let's talk real quick on ability usage and how we can, or nade usage and how we can look to land nades just a little bit better. Now, we didn't see, I didn't see you going for a whole lot of anti-nades, but we'll discuss how can you land anti-nades just a little bit better if we were to go for them. So firstly, don't try to throw nades directly at people. If you do, it just goes, and you miss, it goes sailing past them into nothingness, and it's just going to be a lot more difficult than trying to hit the floor, which just gives you a gigantic radius to work with, which means that you can't really miss very easily. And when you do this as well, it means that they can't body block it from hitting people around them. So when you aim your nades, you want to be aiming at the floor between as many people as possible, preferably. So aiming it around here rather than trying to hit this person directly, right? Additionally, you want to wait for people to group up rather than just chucking it. There were a couple times maybe where we threw a nade in. I remember one instance particularly where we just kind of threw a nade in at the enemy Reinhardt, and when there's like nobody else grouped up with the enemy Reinhardt, and I'm just thinking, well, why don't we wait an extra 5 seconds, see does anybody actually group up on their team, right? Do they stand close to each other? And then when they do, then we can actually land a much bigger nade than one single person, one single anti-nade. Three people, probably gonna be like 4 times the value than one person, right?
Right.
Now, additionally, landing long. Here's a tech for landing long range anti nades. Or nades in general, right? And that is going to be. This only applies if you are scoped in, not if you are unscoped. You're going to line up your target with who you're aiming at. You're going to press E with your ultimate charge. Sorry, you're going to line your ultimate charge up. You're going to press E, and then that nade is going to hit them from any height or any range, though not needed at a close range, of course. Now, when we're on more on even footing with them, so like we're same level as them. In fact, they're a little bit below us. We're gonna line up our Q here rather than our Q, whole ultimate. We're gonna line up a Q, and then that's going to hit them. Um,
Excuse me.
so then moving on, let's talk about positioning real quick. So firstly, just general positioning. This might have been something that we reviewed last time we did a session, but just as a reminder as well. Do you recall at all us going over general positioning last time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, as a reminder, right, good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? And there were, I can think in my mind at least one big particular instance where we just kind of were standing on the open, and then that led to us, taking a lot of damage and or dying. I can't remember which one. But there were a couple times where we just stood on the open, so making sure we're standing on the open. Aside from that, there's a couple other things that go into Ana positioning because there's, you position, that's general positioning, but there's some other factors that go into how you position on Ana. You have your Ana specific positioning. So the first box that you look to check off as Ana is, can I see my team? Do I have line of sight on them? And I'd say in a couple instances, we didn't really have that, and then you also have to think through not just do I have line of sight on them now, but will I have line of sight on them in the near future? So, for example, if I'm standing, let's see, if I'm standing right here, right, I do have line of sight on my team, but what if I think to myself, they're probably trying to push around that corner? Well, now if they push around that corner, I will no longer be able to see them, and therefore I'll be out of line of sight, and then it'll take me such a long time to run into their line of sight, right? So that'd be an example of how we want to be thinking through not just this immediate now can I see them, and then also can I see them in the near future. And I'd probably say that we struggle with that, where for example we were standing on that second corner. So our team, this is kind of what it looked like. So the choke was up here, we had our tanks up there, and we were standing on this back corner, and we were letting our team walk all the way up there while we were standing back here. And then that means if the team walks around that corner, we have to run through all the space before we can actually see them, right? In which time they're dead. So, very highly recommend. Make sure you can see your team. Make sure that you can see your team in the near future, right? Because that's a very basic function of use Ana, is being able to actually heal and keep people alive.
Right.
Let's see. Was there anything else? Trying to recall. We went over the nade stuff already. Think
I
you
was,
can. Good.
I was gonna say I'm aware of this already, but definitely my Call of Duty reloads. I gotta cut back on that.
What do you mean by Call of Duty reloads? If you don't mind.
So like I'll have a half a mag or like still have like 4 bullets and I'll reload when we're taking damage.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So that's definitely very accurate, right? You don't want to be doing that if you're in the middle. In the big important factor there is while your team is in the middle of taking damage, right? You can most certainly do that if you're not needing to be shooting, right?
Right.
Anytime that you should be shooting, you should not be reloading, right? Anytime you don't have anything to shoot at, then you can reload, right? So if teammates are critical and you have ammo, keep shooting. If teammates are all full HP and there's nothing to shoot at, go in and reload, right? So it's just kind of identifying their danger levels and their health bars, and then reloading accordingly. So yeah, that's definitely something to be aware of. Yeah, I would agree. You can probably go ahead and queue up for another game here. One thing that we'll keep our eye on as well is that I did notice that we held on to our ultimate for maybe like I can't recall, it was either a fight or fight and a half. Roughly around that range, where we just want to make sure that we're using our ultimate and not holding on to it, just because ults that aren't used don't get any value. The same way we talked about making sure we're not holding on to our nade usage, or our nades, making sure we're getting them out there doing things. But besides that, yeah, you can queue up for a game, because that was
Would
on
you
the shorter end. Good.
would you consider it? You know how like Bat Window you kind of just I mean, you don't use it whenever, but you kind of just use it. Would you consider nano like that too?
That applies to most, not all, but a good majority of the ults in the game is that you use it whenever you have the opportunity in a fight that's happening that's not won or lost yet, right? So if the fight's
Okay.
happening, then you should probably be using your ultimate with most ults. That's not the case for all of them. Defensive ultimates, right, like Lucio and Transcendence, those are exceptions.
Right.
Certain ones, like I'd say maybe like Diva Bomb, typically you can use a little bit like more towards mid fight, right? So there's gonna be exceptions, but yes, Nano Boost is a very flexible ultimate, so you can use it generally whenever, as long as the fight's happening, as long as you're on the right target as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Right. How long did it say that your cube is gonna take? Do you
Uh,
recall?
I do not remember.
Okay, if you'd like, we can grab a replay code and we could go over that for a little bit while you're in queue. I'm sorry, I probably should have told you to queue up slightly earlier, but I misjudged how much stuff that we had to go over.
That's all right. Um, I'm totally blanking.
Yeah, career profile, replace, yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
I'm freaking blanking, dude.
Yep, and then, yeah, there you go.
Told you, brain's not working hungover today.
Alright, I'll copy that over. Alright, just let me know when you get into the game. I might be able to hear it, but we'll see.
Ready for battle.
Oh, is this the one that we just went over?
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about an older code?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, this one
I'm
wouldn't be
sorry.
too terrible. I mean, like you could see, for example, like here on the Roadhog, how we're this one would be an easy example of it, right? Of how we kind of flick off of them. So watch how
Let me get
we're
back to you on this because I stopped spectating just to save my frames a little.
yeah. You stop spectating what?
Your stream.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you probably should be fine before you get before you
Oh,
get
here
into
we
a
go.
game
All
there.
right, I figured out how to get back
Yeah.
to you. I can see it.
Yeah. So here on the Roadhog, you can basically see that we're like on him, and then we kind of flick off of him. So here we're on him, right? Basically looking straight at him, and then all of a sudden we like flick to the side right at the last second. So
Yeah.
just making sure we're looking to avoid that. Besides that, yeah, getting another one probably might be better here because we don't have a ton. We probably could find a little bit.
I could try this loss. I don't know if I was on tank or support though. It's from a week ago.
Let's see. So how long did we hold on to our ult for? We had ultimate for this one fight that we maybe could have used it. Right here. This is where we are out in the open as well. Just kind of very, very out in the open positioning. I hear you're in a game, so I'm gonna hop over. I'm gonna stop streaming as well for you.
Oh, what am I doing? This is one of my favorite maps. Is Ryan.
Yep. I think this is the most popular map in the game, if I'm not mistaken. from a Twitter poll that I'd seen a while ago.
Probably because it's well designed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me try my I'm gonna do 800 DPI this game. See if that
Okay.
makes a difference.
Yep, I'd also recommend not like swapping back and forth between those two too frequently. Like if you're trying to get used to one of them or try out one of them, typically it's just gonna be better to stick with it because otherwise you're just resetting your muscle memory every time you go back and forth, right? So I'd recommend sticking on one and practicing at it. And if you don't like it, then you can swap it up. But if you're just gonna be swapping back and forth randomly between the two, then that might just make your aim worse than necessary.
Okay.
Yep. So just make sure we're not lagging too far behind our team. We want to, like here, for example, when they're all walking
Doom behind.
forwards, we need to be walking forwards with them. Oh, so in that situation, honestly, we could probably pre-aim like up at the rooftop rather than waiting for him to like drop in on top. We could like aim it up there, and then that could make it easier for us to land the sleep. Besides that, yeah, that's it.
I'm reloading.
I can go Mercy, but the screen's actually hitting a shot.
Reloading, Ryan.
Advisor.
Yeah, I don't know what you can do there.
Wait, push over right. Like right stairs, yeah. I'll take high ground from them.
Let's try and do this Nano Visor quick. Okay, I can't see.
Right, so make sure we're keeping line of sight, right? That's an us problem if we can't see him.
Sig behind. Sig, 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 sig.
Good name.
Sorry, can die. Come on, Zarya again. What? Who's low? Come on, Zarya. We have another.
Okay. In general, I'm noticing that we're sitting a little far back in these fights between the two games. So in general, you as Ana, you want to be positioning at a medium range from the enemy team, or close, sorry, to specify here, it's a close to medium range from your team and the enemy team, right? You
Okay.
don't want to be a mile away, right? Some people think that she acts as a sniper in positioning. That's not true, particularly because of her abilities, right? Her abilities are both projectiles. Projectiles are much easier to land at closer ranges. So I would recommend that positioning wise that we be a close to medium range away from kind of all parties.
Right.
Team probably slightly closer than enemy team.
Advisors.
Put the high ground. Castle, dead.
Push up.
Sigma discorded.
Where is he? Where is he?
So when you know that your soldier's looking for Visor, right, because you see that he's pressed tab, you see he has nano, make sure that you're actively like already looking at him and you're ready for him to Visor at any moment, right? Whereas
Okay.
these past two times, we just haven't been paying him any attention. We knew that he had Visor, we knew we were going for nano Visor, but like we weren't with him, we weren't looking at him, we weren't ready for it, so therefore it was multiple seconds before we actually got the nano on them.
Right.
Hey, not.
No, we're not. Lucius one. Lucius one.
Plug discorded.
I don't need this one. Actually, grab.
Oh, misclick. Or mispush, whatever.
Oops. Okay. I can hold those. Not bad. Moment two, run. Soldier, soldier.
I don't have anything for it. I'm dead here.
Oh my god, whiffing.
Oh, we win. Must not buy or stay alive.
Right now, first. Just put in. 1 point. Hello. Going to put in.
Yeah. Kill away. No.
Alright, so for the most part, doing pretty good so far. Couple mess ups, right? Like there, we in the missing shots in Zenyatta, but even beyond that, we were kind of slow to look at Zenyatta when like Soldier was safe and Zenyatta was very much in danger, right? Being Sigma fluxed out in the open, 1 HP, right? So Zenyatta needed more healing, and we're looking at Soldier. Besides that, we ended up getting nade blocks, which we'll talk about soon after this game is over. How we can land nades just a little bit better. We'll talk more on that.
I'm behind. This guy can die. Tried to save it. I really like that combo. Really like that combo. We got this right here.
Why is the payload stop?
Shit.
I was expecting. There, my bad. Okay.
Right now, first.
He's right here. Don't miss the jumped over.
Okay, so in general, no, again, not too much your fault because your team all get tired and they all died. But I'd also be thinking in that fight, like, why is our entire team in past the choke and we're still lagging behind, right? When we're
Okay.
there even before they are, right?
Trap 6. I think that you get melted that fast.
Oh my god.
Right. So when you're trying to cover that distance, like you're really far away and you know you need to be pushing closer, but like you're trying to heal up the echo, that's where you would quick scope, right? Because you're saving your mobility while also getting that long range accuracy in. Are you familiar with how to quick scope?
No, it just kind of happens when it does.
Yeah, so we'll go over that afterwards. It's just basically you are going to just scope in and then press left click pretty much immediately and then you let go is how that works. But we'll show you afterwards here.
Another tire.
Huge. And you let me die? Zarya. Zarya's one. Yeah. Lucio. Soldier left. One soldier.
Alright.
Soldier low.
So pretty good rounds. Still noticing a little bit of a lack of value on the abilities, right? Noticing 2 enemies slept only. Probably aiming for more than that, hopefully. Going for higher quality nades. We'll talk about some nade usage afterwards.
Okay.
After this game is over here, and I'll demonstrate quick scoping. But quick scoping is not going to be something you're using all the time, but you use it when you are trying to push forward, like that situation where we were looking at, right, where you're trying to push forward to a long distance and you're trying to do it fast, but you also need to heal. You can also do that when you're under pressure and you need to heal somebody from a range, right? So like let's say you have someone shooting at you or you have a DPS on top of you, but you still need to heal someone who's a little bit away from you, right? That's where quick scoping comes in handy because you keep your mobility, you keep your visibility, and you still get the hit scan shot that comes along with the scoping in. So we'll discuss that afterwards here, demonstrate it.
Yep.
Besides that, we're looking at a lot of the same that we've been discussing.
Like right over here. After they start pushing, you just get shit with an ultra because you have an off angle. They'll look at you, and then we can just spray them. So you big bait.
Alright, we got an echo again. Let's go. Lego.
5, 4, 3,
I'm playing back here though. Like the whole time.
No, no, you should be. It's fine.
defend objective A. Go. I see you.
Oh, we keep getting kills here. Oh, sick infant died.
Yeah. Did you put it fast enough? Stop hitting. Stop hitting. Play in back room.
6 on, got him. Oh, they have a fire. There it is. Fire's one.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Another soldier over here. Guys, came around right here. Kills Zyra. Yeah! I feel fucking unstoppable.
Where's Raj? I'm running behind. Look at mine.
Sir. Getting melted.
Got her. You're good, you're good.
Kills Zyra.
All right.
Nice, I like that.
So, noting that during the fight, we kind of crossed through that open area when the fight was happening for seemingly not a big reason. We kind of like left cover to go to other cover, and then that just put us out in the open when we did so. Aside from that, make sure that we're paying attention to danger levels of people. Well, I guess we'll discuss more on that afterwards.
Oh
I
my
guess we can
god, I
discuss
just
it now.
fed.
Yeah, we can discuss it now. So, danger levels, right? Pay attention to danger levels, because there's sometimes when we're looking at people and when we should be looking at other people, right? So if somebody, for example, is inside their team or is like off on their own, they need more of our attention than the person right next to us who doesn't maybe need healing or isn't really in too much danger. So I want you to already be looking at the people and pre-aiming at the people you know are in danger and will need healing. So for example, your Sigma died very, very early at the very start of this round, and we just weren't paying attention to him at all, right? So if
Yeah.
we see, oh, Sigma's off on his own, he might need healing soon, then we can already be ready, and then that might help keep Sigma alive. Okay, probably gonna be pushing forwards there, right? Make sure you're not letting your whole team get like too far behind you. That's unfortunate. So pushing forwards faster, watching those projectiles because they're projectiles, so we can look to dodge them. Maybe the far rocket more than the helix.
Nice. I got no cooldowns.
I need help, Echo. This Farah.
Go right, go right.
Hello, anything you go?
Come spawn.
Fucking pharmacist.
Yeah. I wanted to do that.
All right, did Soldier did Soldier advise her at the time of us landing him there?
No, I did it to save him because I couldn't get out to heal him.
Mm. I didn't. Oh, maybe I missaw, but I didn't see that he was slow. So that's maybe my bad.
Yeah, fuck my ult. I'm better than him. I got shield.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. I thought we were pushing that.
So much time.
Yeah.
Yep. So what you were doing right there is quick scoping.
Double flex support doesn't work well.
Mm. Right, if we see that that's basically last fight, we gotta pop a nano on something, even if it's not a great target, just look to go Q, 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 and just pop it on anything, because then that stalls the fight out longer, possibly opens up for stalls to come out, which is
So you
important.
think I should have just popped it on Lucio?
Yes, that's
Okay.
bet. If you see that your entire team is going to die and you're going to lose the fight, it's better to pop it on a terrible target and stall out a little bit than to die with nano and lose the game, right? Or lose the round. Yeah.
So he's complaining that I was taking his ult charge away. I mean, if you just DPS enough, you build it pretty quick, right?
Yeah,
As
well,
Baptiste.
it's more so that Anabap is not a great healer comp, just because they both do relatively similar jobs in like high healing output. But I'd say that the funny thing there is like, why not him swap, right?
Right.
Nice amount to get out. Let's go.
Incoming in 30 seconds.
Let's go. Those headshots.
All right, so this will be interesting trying to see my Lucio play. I don't really play him that much. If I play like weird healer, I play usually like Brig or Zen. I don't really play Lucio.
4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Where's the lone guy, helper? Come get her, there. Yeah, pharmacy killing right.
Sorry, we got it.
We're going down right now. Yeah, I see those there back there.
I didn't know she was back there.
How do you not know she's back there? She's shooting us the whole time.
All right. So in that fight, your team is on a brawl composition. They are on a spam composition. We sat still, and therefore we lost. So not sure if any of those terms made sense. Are you familiar with what a brawl and or spam are? Oh, we did. We went over that last time. I scrolled up real quick. So same concept applies. I gave you the chart, right? Brawl, close, fast comp, spam, far, slow comp. We played into their composition because we just sat there, and then therefore they won the game. So things that we could be doing there is we can just yell in chat, run into them, I'm amping speed, right? And just full sprint into their team, and then that leads to hopefully win fight over the lost fight. Now let's go over a couple things here. So I'm going to be
So,
streaming. Go ahead.
so if my tanks aren't really taking charge, because usually, like as a tank player, I typically shot call. So I should have just told the Ryan to pull his pants up and go in
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
instead of
you
playing
called
off
that
of
out.
him.
Yeah. So yeah, you can totally 100% just communicate that, because otherwise, how are you to get your team to push forwards if you don't communicate? Are they
Right.
just gonna? Are you gonna mind will them to? No, not gonna work out too well. All right. So here we go. We are going to discuss some more ability usage stuff. So when it comes to and positioning as well. So positioning, let's go over that real quick. So when it comes to positioning, we want to put a lot more. I guess these are intertwined a little bit. We want to put a lot more effort into our ability usage, and our ability usage, I think, is one of the big things that's struggling at the moment. And our positioning is going to impact that a little bit. So we discussed number one, on a specific positioning, right? The first check box is, can I see my team? Number two is, can I land abilities? And that gets into off angling. So going off on a little bit, but a little bit of a tangent, but very related to the topic. When you are going for your abilities, you have a lot of obstacles that get in the way. Right? You have teammates who can body block them. You have enemy team shields and tanking abilities, and the tanks themselves can just body block it from hitting people behind them, right? And you also have, these are the easier ones, but you also just have physical objects as well that can get in the way, right? Those are usually the easier ones to get around because they are stationary, and hopefully you should not be hitting them. Now, when it comes to getting around them, you have a lot of options. When it comes to teammates, you can just, first off, you want to identify, oh, I have a teammate in front of me, right? That's step one. Then you move to the right, or you move to the left, or you move in front of them. It's pretty simple, but we still got some of our nades caught by teammates, right? So we want to pay attention to that and how we're landing our
Yes.
nades, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot to
Mhm.
me.
Yep, so we want to make sure that we're identifying, hey, there's a teammate in front of me, and then moving around them, right? Instead of just chucking in nade. Besides that, make sure we're paying attention to those other ones. When it comes to shields and abilities, we can wait for them to be dropped, we can wait for them to break, or be off of cooldown, on cooldown. We can wait until the person is dead. We can wait and we can move around them. We can wait for somebody to move to the side of them. We have a lot of options, right? There's even more than that we can look to go off of, and we want to make sure we're looking to use them instead of just chucking it in at the abilities and then hoping it does stuff, right? And then really, right, those are the ways we can get around them. And then, you know, getting around tanks is just aiming it around the tanks, right? That's really that simple. But when all those are combined, it can be pretty difficult to land your abilities, right? It can be pretty hard to land that nade if you have so much stuff in the way, and that gets into off angling. So when it comes to off angling, I don't think we would have talked about it too much on tank. Do you recall us talking about that at all?
Not on tank,
Yeah.
no.
Yep. So when it comes to off angling, right? This is, let's say the enemy team is there and our team is here. If we're trying to shoot and we're trying to get off a nade or a sleep, we have to go through our whole team, go through their shields, through the tanks, right? Through the tanking abilities. We have a lot of obstacles. Nades probably not as likely to hit, right? Not super effectively. But if we were to just come over here, well, now we just instantly bypass everything, right? And it becomes a very easy nade that we can chuck in and land a big sleep, and then now we're back to our team. Very fast, very safe. That's called an off angle, right? It's a different angle from the main angle, which is this. This is the angle which most people are looking down, right? And off angles exist, all over the place. They're going to be around maybe like 60 or 50% of the time, roughly, right? Something around that. Right? Another example would be enemy team, our team, main angle, right? We heal up our team, right, while we're backing up. Take a couple seconds, very fast, very safe. We come to high ground. Now we can instantly get around all those obstacles straight to the back line, right? Very easy to land our abilities. Right now we're getting big fat nades. That's how you can look to get big fat nades, and get a lot of value. Now, all of high grounds. I dropped on accident. All of high grounds access off angles as long as you are above them. It doesn't necessarily do very much if they're all the way over there, because then they can still shield you and whatnot. I also want to make sure that you're understanding that there's a difference between an off angle and a flank, right? A flank would be if this
Yeah.
is the main angle and then we went all the way around, right? So flanks are much longer. They take a lot more time, in which case our team is dying during this time. They're also a lot more dangerous, which means that in this time, we probably could be dying, which means that Ana pretty much never wants to go on flanks. So flanks, long and dangerous, off angles, short and safe, basically.
Yeah.
So that is the basics of that. Third checkbox of Ana positioning is, can the enemy team see me? Basically, if you are just heal botting and you're healing your team up, there should be no reason why the enemy team can see us. So if we're standing here, this is bad because we're taking unnecessary damage. We are getting shot at by the enemy team, and we possibly could die. Whereas what we could be doing is just going boop. Now you can't see me, and we get all the same value, right? So this is just very simple way we want to look for positioning where we can do this very easily. And then whenever we're looking to do something else, we can just peek and use our abilities, right, or whatnot.
I expected more from you.
Moving on. So when it comes to your abilities as well, you want to put some thought and effort into it. So when you're throwing out your abilities, you can be thinking through how you're using them seconds before you're using them, or even before you even have them. So if I use my abilities, right, and they're on 12 seconds, I can be using like 4 seconds before I actually have them to think about all these different things. So like right now, I could be thinking, okay, where are people? There's people over here, all right? I'm looking for it. Are they lined up? No, they're not lined up. I'm gonna wait for it. Okay, I'm shooting. I'm doing things and doing things. Okay, they're lining up soon. They're lining up soon. All right, I'm looking for it. 3, 2, 1, Nate. Right. So we're waiting for it. We're thinking about it well before we're actually using it, rather than the alternative just being, okay, I'm shooting. I'm doing stuff. Oh, asleep now. Right. And then we're shooting and we're doing things, and then now it's time for nade. Right. And then they just have a lot less effort, and they have a lot less we don't really think through all those obstacles and all those ways that we can get them in there. So put thought and effort into it. Now, last time did we discuss how you look to apply things that we've been talking about? Do we talk about the application process?
Feeling sleepy?
You are muted, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you. What do you mean, like how to apply it?
Yep. So all these different various things that we've been discussing. Last time, did we
You look
discuss at all
tired.
how you look to apply them to your gameplay?
I mean, you would tell me not to flash my shield, and then I would not flash my shield. So
Yeah.
if that's what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, that is the hope, but we'll go more in depth on that because that's can be sometimes with some of these topics it can get a little bit vague, right? Like
Yeah.
how do I actually apply all these different things to my gameplay, because it seems like that might be very difficult. So let's talk on that. You're going to apply your ability usage the exact same way that you look to get better at anything you're trying to get better at, whether that be in game or out of game, and that is that while you are playing, you're going to be actively focusing on your ability usage, right? Or anything else that you're trying to work on. What that's going to mean is you're not going to just autopilot or play to play, and contrary to popular belief, you're not going to purely just play to win, as that leads to you stagnating, whereas when you play to improve, you're actually going to start winning a lot more. Now, what that looks like is you are going to be thinking to yourself something like this, where you're going, nade, 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 abilities, sleep, 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 right? And giving yourself a constant reminder to use your abilities and use them well and put effort into them, right? And when you do that, your abilities hopefully will be looking a lot more solid because we're putting that thought and effort into how we're using them. Now, when we do that for a long enough period of time, it will form them as a positive habit. Once they form as a positive habit, then we no longer need to focus on them nearly as much because they just kind of come naturally now. Now, I would recommend don't try to do everything all at once. We are talking about a whole heck of a lot of things here, right? That's going to get very overwhelming if you try to do everything all at once. So I'd recommend to focus on one category of things, or like 1 to 3 smaller things within a category, right? And then that way you can kind of focus in on things, get good at them, not necessarily master them, but get pretty decent at them, and then move on to the next thing that you're bad at, right? That all
Right.
makes sense?
Yeah, so I guess my question then is, what would you specifically choose as the biggest issue?
Yeah,
I'm
so
assuming it's going to be my cooldowns, but
yep, that your assumption is probably correct there. We will be going over that in a minute. I'm trying to think here if there's anything else to talk about. That's what we cover in the end. So soon here we'll be going over the main points of the session, do a quick review, and then wrap up from there. I'm just trying to recall if there was any last points that I wanted to go over.
how about
And
my rotations? Were they any good or bad?
yeah, rotations maybe coming like I said, we were starting off further away, and then maybe we're coming like slightly delayed, right? Slightly late.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure that we were just on time with it, making sure that we are pushing. If we see our teams pushing forwards, we want to be like a step ahead of them and ready for them to push forwards, right? We don't want to be lagging behind where like we're reacting, right? So I'd say it's kind of a proactive versus reactive positioning style, right? Where we're thinking, where will my team be going? Not, oh snap, my teammates are already, a full 5 seconds ahead of me. I need to start moving, right?
Right.
That's going to lead to us not being able to help them out, and when they actually need to be getting healed, right? And then real quick, just to go in on that, danger levels of teammates, right? So like if we have teammate, right, A, who is out in the open and away from the team, and you think, let's say it's like, I don't know, let's just make it really easy. Let's say it's a McCree high nooning, and we are thinking in our heads, okay, they're gonna be staring at McCree who's high nooning, who's out in the open, right? That person's in a lot more danger and has a lot more tension on them than this person who's with the team, right? So if this person, even if this person is down, let's say they're like this much HP, and they're down a little bit, this person's more, you need to be looking at this person because this person is much more danger. This person is a much higher priority. So you want to be pre-aiming at this person, right? Because they actually need it. So that's an example of where like we were aiming at like the soldier and healing soldier when yes, he needed healing, but he was very far out of danger. Whereas Zenyatta was like 1 HP being lifted up in a Sigflux, and I'm like, heal this head, no! Right? So we want to pay attention to their danger levels so we're not letting people die. Now, let's go over everything real quick, get into that stuff we were talking about. So, ability usage, sleeps, don't randomly flick it, look to aim straight at them, right? Look for, pay attention to all your obstacles, think through it. All the things we said with nade usage, pretty much. Nade, scope, tech for long ranges, line up your ult charge, don't try to hit people directly, hit the feet in between as many people as possible. Don't try to just chuck it in there and then hope it does things. Wait for them to actually group up. Wait for them to be a big nade. Don't just chuck it in hoping for a big nade, right? Besides that, put effort into how you're using them. Heal nades are needed when people are low and in danger, not one or the other. And then you throw anti-nades just pretty much anytime healing nades is not needed. You want to be throwing these things out off of cooldown pretty much, and then also looking to get very high value, high quality out of them. Overall, ability usage is probably like a medium-high priority for you to work on.
Okay.
Ultimate usage, I did see some issues. Like, one thing I'd recommend is press tab slightly more frequently. I saw you were doing decent on it. You were pressing tab a decent bit. I'd recommend, at a very minimum, you should be pressing it in between every single fight of the game, and then probably even slightly more frequently than that, right? And then this is going to give you information on what did they swap any characters? Did we swap any characters? Who should I be ulting this fight? What ults does our team have, right? It gives us a lot of information to work with. So particularly for your nano boost, that's going to affect, right, who should I actually be nanoing. In general, you did pretty good with it. Just maybe like make sure you're not holding on to it, and then maybe a couple times where you might have been able to nano somebody better. But besides that, we didn't talk on it a whole lot. Not a very big deal. So it's like a low to a medium priority, a low or a low to medium, somewhere around that range.
Okay.
Then moving on, mechanics. Mechanics, make sure you're not flicking unnecessarily. Besides that, we talked about quick scoping at when you're pushing forward, so you're under pressure. But it's not something you're using too often, and that's quick scoping, right? It's just right click, left click, right, and that's it. You just tap it, right? Right click, left
Yes.
click, and it
So
looks like that.
I don't know what it is, but and like obviously you've seen I can do it, but for some reason it doesn't work every time I do it. Like no
Yeah.
matter how fast I click left click.
Well, you don't want to necessarily click it. So I'd go to the training range and practice it a little bit. It's just pretty much right after the other, and you can find the rhythm for it, right? It's just kind of right click, left click, and then that's it, right? It's
Okay.
kind of that simple. You need to just kind of go and feel it out a little bit is what I'd recommend. Go to the training range and practice it a little bit. Just it can maybe be a little bit difficult to describe with words, but you kind of have to find the rhythm for it.
Okay.
Okay. Besides that, make sure we're thinking about target priority, right? Who should we actually be looking at in healing, right? Danger levels and all of that we just talked about. And then besides that, reloading, right? Make sure we're not reloading when there's people to heal, and then make sure we're reloading when there's nothing else to do. Besides that, we didn't talk too much on mechanics. Mechanics was doing okay day. So overall, mechanics is probably like a low to medium priority, somewhere around that range. Then we have positioning. Positioning, you have make sure you're using cover. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Make sure that we are thinking about all the specifics of Ana positioning, right? Number one, can I see my team? Can I see my team in the near future, right? Pre-positioning, being ready for them to move. Number two, making sure I have Number two is do you have words. Number two is can you land abilities, right? So do you have an off angle? Can you actually land your abilities well from where you are? Off angles, great, take them. Number three is can the enemy team see me, right? Make sure that they're just out of your line of sight if there's no reason to be looking at them. Then also on top of that, make sure we're not standing too far away. You want to be a little bit closer so that you can actually do things and have an impact. Close to medium, away from your team, closer to close though, right? It's more so the close, and then away from the enemy team is close to medium, but more so the medium. Okay. And then overall positioning comes in around the same, at like a medium high, right? Similar to ability usage, I'd say slightly lower, but medium high priority. Right? Then finally you have awareness. Awareness is just paying attention to your environment. Honestly, your awareness seemed pretty solid with some exceptions, right? Like I'd say pay attention, make sure you're paying active attention to danger levels of teammates, right? And their health bars and who needs healing, who doesn't. We did a decent job of the health bars, but I think especially it was just knowing danger levels of teammates and identifying that as well.
Right.
Press tab more frequently, pay attention to all that information. make sure we're paying attention to our health bar, because sometimes I think we went for some heal needs when we actually weren't low at all, and we didn't need to go for heal needs. So watch your health. Request healing when you're low, and then if you are low and in danger, then you can heal need, or if it's just in between a fight or whatever, right? And then this also just covers all those odds and ends of just we weren't paying attention to something. Overall, this one is more so, I'd probably say around low to medium territory, around that range. And then that is about it. So to put that all in order real quick. Number one, the one that you should probably be putting the most effort into working on is going to be ability usage. Number two is going to be positioning. Three is probably going to be your awareness, though I'd say off of those first two, it's significantly lower, right? There's a big drop off. And then number four is going to be your mechanics, and then number five is going to be your ultimate usage. Okay, so that is about it. Do you have any questions about anything in general?
I would say, like, when I would DPS, would you say it was like reasonable? Because I get yelled at a lot for shooting enemies instead of healing.
No, I mean I didn't see any times where like we were over DPSing. It's pretty much DPSing is a lower priority, right? If
Right.
someone needs healing, healing comes first, right? That's just it comes before damage every time, right? Now, if you have a bunch of teammates who like moderately need healing and you see an opportunity, like you see somebody who's out of position or 1 HP, then you can just very easily swoop in, clean up that kill, and then get back to healing, right? So it's really going to depend upon the situation. I didn't think that anything you were doing was like too over the top wrong. Typically,
Okay.
people just like to put a blame on the healers because they're like, oh, the healers are bad, and then that means that I was doing good, right? So wouldn't listen too much into that. You know, I think it was fine. Though if somebody needs healing and you damaging, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So anything else?
Nah, I think that's about it.
All right. So let me stop recording there. So I will get you.